All right, Beyonders, welcome back to Winning Warcry, a Tabletop and Beyond podcast. We are happy to have you with us on this fine April evening. We're post-Adepticon. We're post-Adepticon reviews, or previews. We are post-Adepticon reveal of Age of Sigmar, which has brought quite a bit of news for us today. So we're going to talk about some new Warcry models coming out. We're going to be talking about what's going away from Warcry within the next year. We're going to be talking about the new Pyregheists that we finally got rules for. And we're going to be talking about Age of Sigmar Spearhead play and what is the intersection with Warcry, if any. So we got a good show for you. Dan, welcome to the show. Rob, welcome back to the show. Happy to have you guys here.
Yeah.
So we missed you last time, Dan, and maybe it was for the best. It got a little wild.
It was you who got a little wild.
I know. I was out of
a
control.
whole, you guys better behave, and then you went off the rails within 5 minutes, and we were just like...
We learned a lot about Justin last month.
Yeah, apparently.
Especially because I'm actually halfway through your LCG episode, Justin, and you're just like so tamed when you're there with Jason and Dan. and then you're like maybe one notch wilder on these episodes, and then man, without me.
Yeah, seriously. Right? Like Jason holds me back, Dan holds me back when I'm with Rob and the other boys. It's wild horses.
Yeah, you just let them roam, man. You just gotta let them go.
Well, I'm excited about the show. A lot of stuff to talk about, but before we get into that, let's talk about Hobby Table. Rob, why don't you kick us off Hobby Table today?
Finishing up my Saviors of Cinderfall. Just doing all my Order of Azir pieces. I got my little dude here. I'm prepared this time. Don't know if the lighting's that good or not, but you can see my boy Valiest in here. It's probably not too crystal clear. I'll post them on there. Dude was a
hearts, baby.
Dude was just all the key motifs are sick. I know Dan saw a bunch of them. They're really great. And then I painted up like some Quester Soulsworn, and then I realized that gold and black on them look like super duper clean. And like I'm just having a lot of fun playing with them. That's pretty much where all my hobby time's been going.
Yeah, yours are like a couple details different from Anvils of the Heldenhammer, right? But they're pretty similar.
Yeah. I think Anvils have a little like white in there.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. It's like accent, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, dude, I'm a big fan. I think it's so lame, but I love painting Stormcast stuff. They're just so satisfying to paint.
Well, we talked about Order of Azir last time, and I mean that's on my list of things to get. So I'm excited you got it, and I know you play a lot of Tabletop Simulator to try a lot of these things out, but what it tells me when you actually buy it and you're painting it is that like I really want to bring these to the table in like live events, and that's really cool, right?
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Yeah, good stuff. Dan, how's your hobby table?
Pretty good. I did a ton of stuff rushing for Adepticon, and then I took a break afterwards. I just actually yesterday started painting other things, so I'm starting some Lumineth Realm Lords. So I'm gonna do just kind of the base coats are on there right now, but I want to do, you know how they have like this porcelain armor all over the place? I'm gonna try to make it like terracotta, because that's the only other type of pottery I know anything about, and so I wanted to keep the like pottery armor thing going, but that was the only type of other clay I could think of, and so I'm gonna try to do the armor like that, and then just kind of like white and yellow and green robes to go off of it. And then I've also been practicing my blue skin stuff because I'm going to eventually do I'm going to do my Slanesh with blue skin, and so this guy, I was just kind of practicing with him. He's pretty fun to paint. The Ogre and Myrmidon is like the freaking coolest. I love this model. He's like so mean. He's just so, and it's just so clean too. Like there's no unnecessary garbage on him. Everything just kind of makes sense. It is sad that the like straps and stuff are very Spire Tyrants, and now Spire Tyrants are being squatted. which is too bad. But otherwise he's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta finish mine. I did red skin on mine, and I did them with oil paints. And
cool.
Which
Nice.
I actually really like oil paints a lot. But they can be a little tricky on small models. Like I think they work really well. Like if I'm doing like the giants or ogres or something like that, like they are, or even orcs, like those, they're like really, really good. But if I'm trying to paint like Daughters of Cain, like they're a little tricky, like acrylics a little bit better because you can just get one coat on something that's really small, and just get it done. So, but anyway, so I have been on a painting tear, you guys. Like this last month has been amazing. I think I painted more in the last month than I did all of last year, believe it or not. So since we finished our last episode, I completed my Jade Obelisk, right? Because all I really needed to do the last time was base them. I completed my Jade Obelisk, and then I'm going to share some screen because I posted some pictures here. All right, so I completed Jade Obelisk, and then I did Quester Soulsworn. Okay,
Hey, let's take a look at what Discords he subs to.
Yeah,
exactly.
dude, that's the real meta game.
There you go.
Here.
Look at all this
2K notifications. Just dismiss the notifications. Just do that.
Yeah. So there's
Just
the
use
risk
that
one
whole
I was telling you guys
server.
about,
Jeez.
right?
Oh my
There's the
God.
Pirate Borg Limithron. That's a good one. This is our Dragonlance D&D one. So yeah, good times. But there's Big Cry, of course. Yeah, so I did the Quester Soulsworn. I did Haitian, right? So I put
love the
bronze
crystal
armor
bases.
on them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Those are
and
sick.
so and then I kind of painted their capes like
Oh, that's cool.
Wild.
that way. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's
it's
awesome,
a big difference from. I'll show you the capes that I originally started. Where are they? Right here. This looked like circus clown capes, and I'm like, I gotta start. I gotta start over, So I ended up going deeper color, like darker color, more contrasting with the yellow. You know what I mean?
Better.
And it looked way better with the bronze armor that they had. All right, so finished that. Then I did some lava bases, and I painted my horns of Hashut right here. So we got those guys going on. And those were a ton of fun to paint, actually. They were super easy because I kept them like very metallic and bronzy. You know what I mean? So it was just a lot of metallic paints and stuff like that. So easy. So did Jade Obelisk number 1, Quester Soulsworn number 2, Horns of Shut number 3, number 4 was the Black Talons. So got those all painted up. Yeah, and I actually played a game with them a little while ago. They were a lot of fun. Black Talons, and now I have almost completed the Hunters of Huanchi. I'm finishing up the little details. I printed out some bases for them, some jungle bases, and I'll have them probably done tomorrow. So that's like 5 warbands in a month that I painted.
How many hunters did you glue little skulls onto their heads?
I didn't. I just built them straight out of the box. First off, like I think trying to make them all like those little things that what's his name did. Not Overthinking Warcry, but what's his name? ITme, right? Is that his name?
I don't know.
Anyway, the podcast.
Oh, do you mean Off Meta Musings? Do you mean
Off Meta Musings?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I saw his build where he had like a ton of like the claws or whatever, and I'm just like, yeah, I had already built mine to be little blow dart guys, like all of them, and I'm never gonna paint them, but they look really cool. They're very vibrant. So if you want to see them, you'll see a picture of them in the Discord. Join our Discord, links below. Jump in there. But yeah, I'm just on a tear right now, and I keep telling my family, I'm like, hey, listen, that's like 5 warbands that I have painted in the last month. Like, I get to get 2 now, right? I get to buy 2 now and bring it in, and they're like, no, you can't paint. You can't buy more until you paint. So whatever. This last weekend, I also built Scions of the Flame, Spire Tyrants, and a couple of like the Von Karstein model and the Slaves to Darkness, Chaos Priest that you got for being like a Warhammer Plus member.
Sure.
So I got all those built this last weekend too. So that's kind of nice. So I've just been a hobby and fool trying to get it all done.
Nice.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Good work.
Yeah. And all because, things might be going away soon, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So, all right, well, let's move on to news. So you guys were at Adepticon. Do you have a good time out there?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Absolutely.
Very good. I heard good things about obviously the tournament, and then great things about the narrative the next day too. So that seemed to be pretty good. So, but one of the big things that came out was that we had some big news about New Age of Sigmar and some other reveals, and we'll talk about New Age of Sigmar in a little bit. But one of the reveals was Warcry, which I think was kind of hilarious because like they were revealing it to us, even though like they had revealed like the Fire and Blood, or Fire and Flood, like
hot and wet,
like yeah. And like we had heard nothing about it until after this reveal too, right? So many of us were doubting that reveal even existed during LVO. That it was all in our imagination, but well, we finally got rules out of that. But anyway, we got the Briar and Bone revealed. Some very cool models here. It's a Bone Reaper and Sylvaneth box that we'll be getting. And let's get to this. So here's some of the models that they're showing. We'll start with the leader here. What do you guys make of this? What were your reactions when you saw it?
I think he's a little busy, but if he's huge, then it won't feel as busy. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like if he's huge, it'll just feel like a normal level of kind of stuff going on.
Do you think this rider is like the Centaurian Marshall big?
I don't think he'll be that big, but like if that torso is the size of a stalker torso, right? Then he'll be like total size. He'll be like 1.5 stalkers, and stalkers are big on the table, right?
Yeah.
And so if he's as big as 1.5 stalkers, then I really like him. If he's smaller than that, then I don't like him.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's fair.
I think if he had anything other than like the vertebrae whip, it would look less busy because it does look busy. Right. And I think the vertebrae whip blends in and gets a little bit kind of wild out there.
Yeah.
The whole lore behind them just being like exiles, right? Like him being a Liege Cavalos fused to his mount, like this whole thing's just like a joke to Nagash, is kind of wild. Sure. And like because every one of them is like all scraps. Like as you go through them, I'll dollop in with the 2 paragraphs I read, and I think Dan's right. If it's kind of stretched out, it'll look really cool. I think the idea of giving like a first mounted leader is kind of sick. Like there's downsides to it, right? Like you can't hurdle things you should be able to hurdle, but it's a sweet idea though.
And Death doesn't have if this guy comes out to be like 260 as a 8-inch move 260 point hammer piece, like Death doesn't have anything like that right now. It would really change the entire Grand Alliance.
They've already got a slew of good allies too, like an injection of them. Yeah, this would be big, Dan. You're right.
So my question is, with this guy, is he a mount or is he a unit? Because it's like our Centaur. You know what I mean? Like he's not. It's not really a mount per se. So does he still have mount unit or mount rules?
So I have a video. It's not coming out for like 2 weeks or so, but one of my patrons declared that I had to make a video about fixing some of the worst profiles, and the big centaur was number 1. And so we decided that like for a triple, you should be able to climb stuff because you've at least got arms.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you just like really get into like jump and then pull up, you should be able to do like a little bit of climbing, but you've got to spend a triple on it. That's how I think centaurs should be. But like Skaith and the Chaos Centaur, they all have the mount rune mark. So I assume this guy will have the mount.
Yeah, that's probably fair. And in keeping with classic Warcry, we have a love of dogs. So we have the bone doggos. here, right? So
Yep.
I will say that aside from the recent dogs that we got with the Wilder Pack, right? Or Wilder Pack. I'm blanking on the name right now. But like these dogs are one of the better ones. Like some of the Royal Beast Flayer dogs were terrible. Like
The
so
baboons,
bad.
the awful hounds,
baboon
they're
dogs. Yeah, exactly.
pretty wild.
The poop hounds.
Poop hounds for sure.
So
I gave them to my daughter to paint. She painted them brown. It was really funny.
Yeah,
He picked brown.
awesome.
I did not pick brown. She was like, they should be brown.
On theme, like it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Good job.
She knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, these are like, I guess, less doggo-y like and more like saber-toothed cats, but still, it feels like
I kind of like the kind of goat crest on the one.
The one looks like
kind of like that one.
The armor.
Yeah.
Again, they're all like more tech guards that like failed to do their job or like or something happened and they were just fused together to make this, which is like sweet. It's in keeping of like the exiles of OBR. Super
cool.
What is awesome about this design though is that like this is maybe the best models that you have for the Skeleton Horde contrast paint. Like it has such natural recesses in here that if you were to just like put a nice base coat down, do a skeleton, like even Zenithal or Dry Brush before, hit it with the speed paint, the Skeleton Horde, and then a little like light Dry Brush afterwards, like they would look amazing.
Yeah, it'd be great.
With the way that the overlapping plates are and stuff like that. So
you can speed paint OCR like crazy if you want.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing you won't get if you do that is the way they've done the kind of ectoplasm in the center, like a Gushers, like with the juicy center. You won't get that if you speed paint them all, but
Gushers
otherwise,
are delicious.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Let's be real about this.
Yeah, all the 90s kids know. But yeah, you won't get that if you speed paint them, but you can still make, or like if you contrast paint them, but you can still make something look amazing with contrast painting them.
For sure.
So
we got some bone harpies here, basically.
Hate these.
Do you?
Oh, they give me such a. It's like I'm gonna share a quick bizarre story for you. Like the first time I saw it, it brought me back to my grandma's house, where there's this mean old lady who sat on her porch who had like hair shaped like that head shape. And she used to like suck on hard candy and yell at us, and the hard candy would always like fall out. And it was just like this brought me back. And I was like, no, I don't want to be there ever again, dude. This is horrible. It's the head shape, dude. I can't do it.
Dude,
that's so funny that you don't like the head because I hate the wings.
Really? I love
those wings gross me out.
That's so funny.
The whole thing looks like their names would be like Meredith and Tabitha, and I just want to hard pass on all of this, dude. Get it, just
so
go.
funny. I love how
they fly.
Rob sees this reveal and has some sort of Proustian like flashback, like to like his grandma's house. Oh my goodness, that's so amazing. Listen, I love them. I like the harpies, and I like these guys too. So I guess I'm in the minority here.
I kind of like the other models in this warband, but I just don't like the harpies. I don't like the wings are so messy.
Yeah.
Like they feel like what Flesh Eater Court's wings should look like, or what Soul Blade Gravelord's wings should. But like I like the OCR are kind of my favorite death models because they have this like clean, like they're famous for their discipline kind of feel to them that nothing else in Death has. And it's actually just really rare in the game. It's really only like Stormcast and OCR that have that kind of vibe. And I kind of like that. And these harpies are just like so messy and gross.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, I get it for Realm of Beasts, but
pass.
And now we got two long weapon kind of probably some mid-range tier fighters. I'd like to point out that this might be the second Bident that we have in the game, right?
They're also Cyclopses, which is even cooler.
Yeah.
So is it just these guys in Horns of Hashut?
Yeah, exactly. So remember, you saw the rune mark, the weapon thing was a Bident, and everyone's like, "What the heck is this thing?" And it turned out it was just like, it wasn't a trident, it was a Bident. And it was only Horns of Hashut that had it. So it's kind of interesting. and it's it was the leader had it. Looks like one of those like dessert
Vortex.
forks.
Yep.
Yeah, I do like the Cyclops thing, which is kind of hilarious because like, what humanoid is a Cyclops that
Just
has a
bones.
Cyclops skull? You
Just
know,
bones taken.
Just yeah.
But my sense is that OCRs are like it's like pasta. Like they kind of mush up the bones
Yeah.
and then they extrude it in any kind
Right.
of shape that they want it to be in.
Yeah, they got bone
So
shapers,
it's like,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
So they can
unlike
make
Or
their
is a
own
bone shaper?
Cyclops.
Yeah.
right, unlike Stormcast, I'm sorry, I'm diving big here into the lore. Where Stormcast, where Sigmar is like put the one soul in the body, they get their consciousness until they become automaton dolls, right?
Yeah.
Nagash stripped the will from them, but they have multiple souls in them, and they're just meant to be like a phalanx killing machine, except for Catacross is the only one that retains his identity and soul. So like, and he becomes the Mortarch of the Necropolis. So these were just like everything is stripped out of him, and for him to strip the soul and then just make them freaks is even crazier. Like it's a wild approach. It's pretty, and it's same thing. It's that clean, almost like Greco-Roman hoplite style sort of armor that they have. I do really enjoy them. I think the Cyclops are cool models. I'll buy an additional box just to not to play the Harpies. So,
and one cool thing on OCRC is that the Techless book talked about how some of them, like especially the characters, if they live long enough, the mishmash of souls that makes them up starts to create a new blended personality and starts to like have quirks and like an actual like it becomes an actual being with free will. And so like a lot of the leadership of OCRC have become actual people despite like the way they were processed and created, which is kind of cool. It's almost like being stormcasted in reverse, which is kind of neat.
Well, that was the whole thing. He's like, Stormcaster just good guy necromancy, and he's like, no, they're not. He's like, okay, watch this. I'm going to do the same thing, and he did. And I'm like, he just did it way more right. Just pay the bone tithe, and that's it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, is this an auto buy faction for you guys?
It's not for me, although because the Sylvaneth are for me, I'll probably end up with these, and I doubt I'll trade them away, but they'll be pretty low priority for me.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm on the same exact fence. I'm like big fan of elf spirits and tree mechs, and now it's infected.
Okay.
It's infected tree mechs, so it's even cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Let's talk about Sylvaneth then. I mean, it's a band of basically tree revenants that are kind of mutated by Gur, right? It's what I understood it to be.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at this first model that we have. My first reaction when I had it was Nick Cage yelling out, "Not the bees!
Oh, yeah.
Not the bees!" You know. But what a cool model this is, right? Like got beehives coming out, and
it's awesome.
Like,
it's gonna be a nightmare to paint. Look at all the little bees and wings.
Oh,
I just saw that and I was like,
it's gonna be awful.
It's like a week on the bees.
Because you have to paint the bee bodies. You have to.
You have to.
You can't just glaze over them.
Non-negotiable.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not insane people.
No,
it's
sweet, dude. You're gonna have to put those little tiny stripes on all of them too.
Yeah, and these have this team has a few details. One of the things I love about Sylvaneth is they're so easy to paint. And these guys are not going to be easy to paint. They're not going to be like the hardest team ever to paint, but they're not going to be easy. They have a bunch of little details because all the little like Nurglifications on them are all like, they're like details that stand out from the wood. And so you can't just like Sylvaneth were the classic before contrast paints even, you would just do only washes. You would do wash, dry brush, dry brush, wash, and then they'd be done. And these you won't be able to quite do that.
I love the all of them usually have like the branches for hair. These are like the tendril roots.
Yeah.
And it looks so cool. So cool.
Yeah. Here's some of the kind of more sort of mid-range fighters you see. One with the looks. I mean, the bow and sword are very reminiscent of like the Kurnoth Hunter style, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that we have. But I mean, like, look at these leaves right here, right? That they have, and I mean, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And it's just so much more than what the Sylvaneth models are, right?
Right.
So
I really thought that original Tree Rev kit just didn't go far enough. And these go so much farther. And that one Underworlds kit that's not very good in Warcry, so you don't really see it around in our community much, but
Guardians
is
or whatever.
I think so, like Yulthari's.
Yuthari's
Anyway,
Guardians. Yeah.
yeah. Like those are so cool, and so I love to see them doing more stuff with that concept.
Me too. I agree.
yeah. Here's more of that kind of Nurglification that you're seeing, right? I mean,
So
this
cool.
is like the tentacles coming out of
That's
it.
so
They're not
creepy.
really tentacles; they're like roots, but they feel like tentacles.
Yeah.
Like it feels like Lovecraftian almost. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's got like an element of horror here, you know, that Sylvaneth really isn't totally known for. And this guy looks like Locutus Borg, you know, from Star Trek.
Mhm.
You know, Borg Captain Picard. So
yeah, it's there's so much character in these that I think these are like it's an auto buy. Like it's a snap auto buy, and like I'll probably buy another box when they're released independently too. But even like on the tendrils, right? Like look at its arm, you can see the tendrils creeping from within inside the spirit, which is even more wild. Like you see like the
Yeah.
roots writhing and
Right up in
super, super duper cool, and like the whole her making bees to eat the infection away to cure them, but they still have like the fungus infection. Dude, it's
Mhm.
top notch. This is top notch. This is top notch.
And it's also just such
Yeah.
great storytelling. Like they've been telling us for ages that Nurgle and Alariel are just like at each other's throats constantly, and now they're
Right.
finally showing us. Like I'd love
Right.
to see. I like Rotmire Creed, but I'd love to see the other side too. Of like
Yeah.
we've got Sylvaneth who have been fighting Nurgle for too long, and now I kind of want to see Nurgle who's been fighting Sylvaneth for too long. Like see
Right.
And
what
they've
effect
got
she's had
growth,
on
like
him.
growth coming out of them, right? Like
Right.
Or yeah,
new
just like
life growth.
plants growing out
Yeah.
of the sides of their heads or something. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Alariel and Nurgle are like two sides of the same coin, right? Like it's all about life and death and the circle of life and all that stuff, and you almost have to have one and the other, and that's not the case with a lot of the other chaos gods. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of
Yeah,
interesting.
I like that dynamic so much, and I like how, you know, there's a weird way in which like Nurgle sees it more clearly than Alariel does. Like he sees her and him as like fated to be together, and she's just like, fuck that guy, he needs to die. When like they really are, I agree with you, Justin, they are kind of
Two
like
sides
two
of the same
sides
coin.
of this same thing. Um, but yeah, it's cool.
I love these. What are these? These are almost like
Dryads.
branch race, right? Dryads, I guess.
Dryads, yeah. They look like
But they've
updated
got-
sick dryads, dude, with like a little bit more claw like. They look really good. Also, hot updated lore tidbit for you guys, because that's all I'm good for right now, is Nagash is also pissed off with Alariel because she stole all the elf spirits souls from him. So he's like, why is nobody giving me my souls? Sigmar, Alariel, all of them just go. So he's also has incentive to fight them other than just being in Gur, which is pretty cool, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's gonna have a whole bunch of rat spirits coming towards him here in a little bit too. You know,
Rats are his nemesis. He doesn't want those.
I know, dude. They ruin his plans all the time. All the time. Well, I'm excited for this box. It does come with this one terrain piece.
That's
How
my
are we feeling
least
about
favorite
this
terrain they've ever produced.
Really?
Wait, what did you
I
say,
don't
Dan?
like
What did you
it.
say? You
I
hate
don't
it?
like it.
no.
It creeps me out. I don't like it.
It is creepy, but it's sick, dude. Look at that thing. That's awesome.
So here's what I love about this. One, easy to paint. Like this is not that hard to paint. Like getting the wood down is pretty easy, and it's only got like one platform of bamboos and a whole bunch of skulls. It's got some banding, of course, that you if you like painting all those bandings. But you know, like all things considered, for Gur, like this isn't that bad to paint. You know, so you got that going for you. I think it's a nice addition to Gur. Like if you throw that in the middle of your table, you know, with some of the other trees and stuff like that, like it fits really, really well. I didn't think that the Ma in the previous box that we had like fit very well. You know, the gorge. What is that? The Gorger Mob Pit. I didn't think that
really?
fit.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't think that fit into Gur that well. Like it was very much a ogre piece.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't really a Gur piece, in my opinion.
It's got a weird footprint too. Like it's got a
Yeah.
footprint that's not like a lot of stuff in the game.
Right.
That can be, I don't know. It doesn't feel like it was designed for Warcry first.
Bingo. I think this
Yeah.
was designed for Warcry first, right? And I don't think that the other one was. And so that's why I was like, oh man, that other one doesn't just like one of these is not like the other. You know, but I like this. It's super creepy, but I like it.
It is really creepy. It's very unsettling. Dan is right. It's really weird. It was already weird getting like muscle trees, but then having like animate. This is the first time we have like animated muscle trees with a mouth.
Yeah,
it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
This is kind of what we were promised, though. Remember, like when Heart of Gur first came out, they were like, "Oh, even the terrain is super deadly." And yeah, they kind of had some rules around like deadly terrain on some of them, but not really, not like this. This is like it'll eat your models, you know.
Awesome.
So like this was a much bigger, like this is kind of fulfillment of the promise that they gave us like 2 years ago, almost. So
yeah.
I wonder how long they've been sitting on this one. You know, waiting for the exact right time to do it.
You're not joking. Yeah.
They had to be like, listen, we dropped the ball with Fire and Flood, so here's this really cool box. Don't look this way. Don't look at the delay.
Yeah. Well, that's what's coming to Warcry. I assume that we'll probably get the pre-orders for this beginning of May. That's my opinion. You know, beginning to mid-May. I was way off on the Fire and Flood one, but I think that was GW just doing their thing. Because they were pretty late in the pre-orders for that one. But I think this is coming out beginning May. That's my opinion. Because I believe new Age of Sigmar is going to hit the shelves in June, is where that's going to fall. So I think that they'll try to get this out before new Age of Sigmar, in my opinion. So, yeah, cool. All right, so that's what's coming. Let's talk about what is leaving Age of Sigmar. Oh my gosh, this kicked up such a firestorm on the internet when it happened. I mean, like people are still talking about it. Like and the poor Warhammer like community people, the social media team, they're having to field all of this stuff. You know what I mean? And it wasn't their decision to like make these things. And they're just like, well, you get new Stormcast.
Yeah.
Someone's like, we don't want new Stormcast. You know, I want to keep my Bonesplitterz. At least I think that's what they're saying. Okay, so let's talk about so obviously Stormcast Eternals, they're taking kind of a big hit. Here's what I think GW did right in phasing these out. They say that you've got until 2025 to play all of your models. That's a year. I mean, with the 40K, when they came out with 10th edition, they basically said Harlequins are gone. Whoop! And they cut them like right away. You know what I mean? Like they're done. Like they didn't give any warning. They didn't give like, oh, you got a year grace period. Enjoy them like was a sunset. You know, like, so I do think that this was a good move by GW. And I think that this was lost on a lot of people that were just really complaining about losing models, you know, that, hey, you still have a year to play them and start up a new army if you need to or whatever. So what does that mean for Warcry? It means that all these models and the Warcry warbands that we're going to talk about here in a little bit are likely safe until 3rd edition comes out, in my opinion. You know?
So here's what they did wrong.
Okay.
Look at this static ass mounted Stormcast. And then look at this, just like incredible, could pounce on you at any moment. Like these two sculpts are not equivalent.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The fact that this one survived and this one did not is pretty wild to me. That's kind of separate. Like,
I hear you.
wanna
I
be
think though that with a lot of these Stormcast ones, they're gonna get resculpted. So I think a lot of those ones that like people are like, oh my gosh, they're getting rid of sequiturs. I think we're getting new sequiturs. I think we're getting new, you know what I mean, new evocators. I think we're gonna get new sculpts of that, just like we're getting new liberators.
I mean, the one thing that did make sense that they kind of mentioned for just a second is like sequiturs aren't different enough from vindictors and liberators.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like at least, vindictors are spears and liberators are hammers, so it's like range, reach versus no reach.
Yeah.
But sequiturs just aren't different enough from liberators because they never made the maginess of them interesting enough.
Right.
Like, in my opinion, evocators are different enough from these guys to feel different when you play them.
Uh-huh.
They don't feel different in Warcry because they don't have a magi ability in Warcry, but in AOS they feel different enough, and like evocators
Right.
feel different than paladins, but sequiturs don't really feel different than liberators at all. So if they do resculpt sequiturs, which I believe you that they need to figure out a different identity for them.
Sure. Because I think everything's going into Thunderstrike mode. You know what I mean? And really, what's happening with space? It was happening with Stormcast Eternals is they're getting space. They're getting Primarisified, right? Like how the Space Marines went from the old sculpts to the new sculpts of Primaris. And basically, there's probably going to be some lore about how all the Stormcasts are getting upgraded for this new fight. You know what I mean? Just like the Space Marines had the same lore about how they went from first gen Space Marines to this next gen Primaris, which is like bigger, beefier. You know.
The wild thing about the Primaris thing though is that like the new Primaris stuff is actually smaller.
Yeah,
Right,
it's
sure.
more streamlined.
Yeah, they're slimmed
Yeah.
down.
They're not
Yeah.
chunky Space Marine esque. They're more like these
Right.
are just holy knights, right?
Right.
It says if you look in the article, like on the top, like exactly where it's at, like you don't have to move it, right under Stormcast Eternals. The Sancrisect is just going back up to go work on the reforging errors. Like that was their lore drop right there, right? These
Yeah.
include right. They just went back up. They're like, we're done here. See you later. They're coming out with the Ruination Chamber. I think is going to be on top of it with the Thunderstrike, and that's why
Yeah.
you're going to see a lot like mushed and molded together. And honestly, that's fine because like if I'm a new person getting into Warcry and AOS, and I'm like, man, look at these cool warrior chambers, and they're just not supported. Like they're not buffed up in AOS compared to like the new stuff that's coming out. Like obviously they want to push sales, they're business first, and it sucks because like I was telling Justin before he came on, I think I told you, Dan, like I have like 2K of sequiturs, like of like Sancrisect Chamber. I have like 1K of Warrior Chamber and like 2K of Thunderstrike, and most of that is just. But like I haven't touched them, I haven't played them in a bit. But it sucks for new people coming in. It sucks for the people like that's the only thing they have, and it's a it's a delivery they could have done with a little more tact, I think, than just being like, take a look at this list, buy. Like you're just like,
I agree.
Okay, like I get from a business standpoint like why this is happening, and like I'm sure this is going to segue into Warcry. Like this is a lot of stuff they have to balance into the new stuff that if we just get rid of a lot of bloat, it's probably easier, right? Like it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's
especially with Stormcast.
Right.
I mean, they have so many
dude,
models.
Dude, it's so many models. And I'm a big Stormcast boy. Like I love my SCE. But like I have never played any of these. Paladins, maybe the exclusion, prosecutors in 1.0 I've played. But like most of these are just sitting on the sidelines looking thick.
Yeah,
that's it.
Totally.
Yeah. And the one thing, like Stormcast have it easier than Bonesplitterz and Beasts of Chaos did because like this guy can proxy in for this guy or like the melee.
Sure.
Like I built as the crossbow version, but like this guy could be a fulminator easy, right? It's just like exact same base, mounted, and it's just like with a melee weapon. So pretty easy to make it the same. And basically every Stormcast can proxy for every other Stormcast.
For
But
sure.
that's not true for some of the other stuff going away. Skaven, if we want to go to Skaven first, I guess Skaven, at least the models are so old.
Yeah,
Although
they
not
need
the
help.
Arch Warlock. The Arch
No, it's
Warlock
true.
is pretty new.
Warlock's sick,
What's
though, yeah.
interesting is I did not hear one Skaven player complain about getting like these models going away because they knew new models were coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Skaven players were like, "Nope, this is fine. This is okay.
Mhm.
We're cool with this." I mean, they've been talking about a Skaven model refresh for years now. You know, because a lot of these are old. I mean, the Storm Vermins are like those go back to fantasy. You know, I mean, long time ago. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with them. I'm excited to see what they do with the. I mean, we saw the new clan rats coming out,
great.
right? So
yeah, they look
cool. So I'm
Did you see
excited
they're
about
keeping
it.
the old plague monks?
Yeah,
They're getting rid of censer bearers. They're getting rid of the plague priest, but not the plague monks.
Right.
Oh, interesting.
That old kid is still going strong.
Those still look good to me though. The plague
Really,
monks,
do they?
like I still think they look cool.
You must have seen someone who put in real work on the mold lines then.
Oh, that's
they
true.
look all
yeah,
right.
with the
Yeah.
I had a friend
pretty...
and Skaven was his thing, and he put some love into those plague monks.
Okay.
But yeah. All right. So this one hits a little hard for me. Now, granted, I didn't have a Bonesplitterz army. I just had a one box Bonesplitterz Warcry band, and you heard me tout this on our Bonesplitterz episode. But I mean, these guys to me were living on borrowed time. They should have gone away in AoS 2.0 in the Warclans book. I mean, people were talking about
these.
Yeah, I mean, like their rules in 2.0 when that Warclans book came out were awful. I mean, they basically GW was doing its best to make sure that nobody played them, and the only reason that people kept playing them is that you could fit Kragnos and the Kronspire in a Bonesplitterz list and make it viable. You know what I mean? So people were winning tournaments with Bonesplitterz, but it was because they had Kragnos and the Kronspire. You know what I mean? Like it had nothing to do with the Bonesplitterz. So look, I'm kind of sad. They kind of got that 1980s goofy orc thing going on, which has a little special place in my heart, but it's okay.
Aesthetically, they feel like Warhammer Fantasy. They don't feel AoS to me aesthetically. Like even like Ironjaws are from Warhammer Fantasy. They feel both to me. Like they feel like they're Warhammer Fantasy and they feel AoS. But Bonesplitterz just don't feel very AoS to me. They just like come from that, the awkward like geopolitical placements of the Warhammer Fantasy map and stuff. And
do you think that they'll bring out a new orc faction though to kind of take their place? That's the question that I have. Or are they happy with Ironjaws and Cruel Boys?
I think they're happy with those two, even though I would love a new orc faction. I don't think we'll get one.
Yeah.
You kind of have the new models, the weird boys, the Ragers or whatever they're called, the weird knobs.
Yeah.
They're kind of the savage, not well in the head. These guys have no shirt, hot orc boy summer going wild, right? Where it takes the place. I think it was like a nice mesh of taking it like, oh, if you want the raging berserker, half naked guys, this is them. Right. And they fit in here, and this is what they do. These are antiquities of time. And,
Yeah.
I mean, other than Hedraka's Mad Mob, they
which
just had
pretty good.
Yeah, which I do own. Hedraka's Mad Mob. Like you look at the dude with the claws on there. Like if they all looked updated a little bit more like that, you'd be more passable. But the writing was on the wall. They didn't want you to buy it. They didn't update their rules. Like somebody found a loophole and finding like points and smacking these guys on the table, and they're like, get them out. And everything was just being pushed towards like the new IJ coming out and the new Cruel Boys like being like, do you want your sneaky orcs or you want your strong orcs? Like, and they're both crazy because they're orcs. We don't need these guys anymore. And okay. And also, I know you're a big fan of them in Warcry. Justin, and I can never make you a believer, but they are just ostensibly worse Ironjaws. I'm gonna die on that goddamn hill, okay, Justin? you need to grow up a little bit here. Say goodbye.
Listen, that extra movement that they have, That extra movement that they had would get you the charge that you needed. It would
Oh,
get
I just
you the
might
charge.
use Wog and do the same thing. Don't worry about it. Go down. Pass this up. Turbo turds. Turd
I like them.
sandwiches.
Hey, I like the big spear. I love.
I'm
the
happy
big spear.
you're
I
happy.
just wish it. I wish that it had a triple or a reaction that on death it could throw the spear like it did in
Yeah,
I wish I had that, but it's okay.
Right.
It's okay.
And then you got Monster Killers too. That was like another like mid-dense jungly orc warfare. So
right. All right, so let's move on to Slave of Darkness, which really is a Warcry nerf right here, right? This is the one that on Big Warcry, people were on all up in arms, like, how dare you? Like, these are our favorites, right? We've got a lot of the 1.0 war bands, Splintered Fang, Unmade, Corvus Cabal, Cypher Lord, Scions of the Flame, Iron Golem, Spire Tyrants, Untamed Beasts. And then you have the Tarantula's Brood as well. I mean, these are all 1.0, and Horns of Heshut. Oh, actually, Horns of Heshut is the only 2.0 warband here, which kind of surprised me about Horns of Heshut. But everything else is pretty much 1.0. You have Kagra's Ravagers, which is an underworld, but you can kind of play it in Warcry as well. But yeah, like, what are your feelings on this, Dan? I'm curious. I haven't heard you say anything about this, so I want to get your raw take.
I think, well, it makes me interested to know like what the real plan or behind Warcry 1.0 was. It makes me think that that whole game was a tryout to see what the face of Chaos Humans was going to be. And Darko Savagers won, like, and even and it even works in the lore, right? Like the lore of the whole place is like everyone is trying to get Archaon's attention.
Yeah.
You know what? The Darko Savagers got his attention. Everybody else sent home.
High school boyfriend Archaon got his attention.
Yeah.
He's finally taking us to the game. We're okay, guys. We did it.
Yeah. So it's too bad. I mean, if I had to pick, I would say I wish Corvus Cabal had won, but they obviously weren't going to just do birds. It was pretty clear. I thought when they did like Spire Tyrants and Untamed Beasts and Darko Savagers, all like taking different stabs at the same theme. I mean, those three warbands are exactly the same. Obviously, they're a little different. You can tell them apart, but in terms of concept, they're just like the exact same type of barbarian.
Right.
And to me, that's like pretty clear. Like that's when they were just like, okay, we know where we want to go, and now we're just kind of like refining this idea. Horns of Heshut is interesting to me. I mean, I wonder, a lot of people really hated the aesthetic at first, and
I came around on them when I painted them. Like, I actually really like the way my Horns of Heshut look now. And I think we had talked about this. The way GW painted them, I think, turned a lot of people off.
Yeah, I think so too.
The box art wasn't all right.
Yeah. I also wonder if they're held back in those situations because they're what do you call it? They're goldish metallics. The Citadel non-silver metallics are just not good paints. And so I feel like a lot of their bronze miniatures just don't look good. And I just wonder if that was part of it too.
So that's an interesting. I think it's pretty accurate. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's dude. First off, Untamed Beasts being the original Gur tribe because they're from Gur. Like they eat the beasts and they move on. Like that's what got me into Warcry. I was like, whoa, this is just chaos gladiator dudes, and like they got some animal themes. I was like, sign me up. The Unmade are on stilts. That's what I thought when I first saw them. I thought they were stilts, and I was like, oh, cool. Right. Like there's so much.
So sweet.
There's so much flavor in a character, and them iron golems too, right?
I love them.
Like Iron Golems being another, like, check out my football helmet tryouts, but like secretly I'm like, right, like I these guys are always going to hold a special spot, and I think because we have such a limited point of view of like what's going on with them, it's hard to get the full picture. But from the other side, they gave them the points to rework, but like look at the design space they're working in, right?
Yeah.
And none of this takes away from the fact that there's new people who just bought in, just got these models, love them. I hurt for you because it's such a small scale warband and like that sucks. But in the other sense, like look at all the new design space. Half of these warbands had on a double 4 to 5 do 1 damage, on 6 do value the dice, or like
and one ability for the leader. You know what I mean? Like
right.
You know?
And there's only 2 leaders in this entire group. There's only 2 leaders. They're all the same. There's only, well, I guess the unmade one kind of breaks the mold, but otherwise it's just like they're all the same.
Right. And you're spending a million fortune. Hashut being the only one that I think is a questionable takeaway. But if you're telling me flame hurlers are leaving, that's kind of spooky because they keep hordes in check, kind of. So that's another point. Like, and they're also just like, it's a cool war band. Like there's really no, the other ones, like it sucks, but how are you going to balance Cypher Lords when new River Boys feel like Cypher Lords 2.0? Like with speed and some tricks. How are you going to balance Science of the Flames when you have other things doing the same thing? Iron Golems are just like, more tanky boys coming out right now. There's way more tricks and dice and everything that have come out. To like, it's hard, dude. It's like 3 dudes working on this game. They give it some love. They're obviously listening. Like they're picking up everything like we were putting down or Dan was putting down. Like, so, I mean, hey, like if this is like taking it away from AoS made sense. Taking it away from Warcry, like I think Dan's right. Like it was the tryouts. Okay, now we're just gonna give 1 warband to each faction, and then maybe build up from there. Like we don't have the full picture, but it stinks though. I mean, but I also have 2 boxes of IG and UB just sitting downstairs, like fully painted up. I'm not running them. I run them to teach new people, but now I don't. I just use questers. Like.
So, I mean, here's the other thing too, though, is like there are, and I think I counted this right the other day. There's 64 different factions in Warcry. Like that is a lot. That is a lot. And when we're getting close to 3.0, where I think that we're going to see some significant game shifts, like some rule shifting, like you've got to pare down, you got to cull the herd a little bit, and it only makes sense that some of your oldest models or oldest war bands that really like there's not a lot you can do with them. I mean, flavor wise, they're little tiny guys that can only be 8 wounds because that's the way you've designed them. Like if you're looking at like size and armor and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like they can only be 8 wounds. Maybe you bump them up to 10, maybe, but still they're fragile in the current meta. Do you know what I mean? Like they're so fragile. So you either need to give them 13 models that you can do it with, but that's not the box that they're in anymore. You know what I mean? Like you would have to completely repackage a box to give them more models to be able to go horde. And that's not what Cypher Lords is all about. That's not what the Signs of Flame are all about. They're not about being a 13 model horde army. You know what I mean? Like they were their contained warband in 1.0 that had 8 models that you could face off another box of 8 models and go at it. You know what I mean? So
I think they had room to make the specialists a lot better, even given the model they had. Like I've been, painting a lot of Scions of the Flame recently, and like the Brazen Champion, he costs 165. He's so got like he's the number 2. Basically, he's the second biggest guy. He has room to cost 30 more points and do 40 more points worth of stuff. Like easy. Because he's not very good. He's not good at all. But he is pretty darn cool and big enough and impressive enough that if he was 200 points and the leader was 220 points, you wouldn't bat an eye at all. But instead the leader's 200 and he's 165, which means that like the middle people in that warband are all like pretty poor. So it's
what I hope
odd.
What I hope they do is that they take some of the great things about these warbands. For example, I really love the Scions of the Flame quad ability that like they just start on fire. You know what I mean? You're rolling dice, and if you roll sixes, like you keep rolling that. You know what I mean? And maybe not make that a quad. Maybe that's a triple because like it can do a certain amount of damage anyway. But like, take that ability and go give it to another fire faction that's out there. Like, I would have loved to see the new Pyrehgeist have that same ability where like they can light something on fire and it burns to a crisp. You know what I mean? Like that would have been nice if like you're taking away the factions that can do these kind of cool abilities. Splintered Fangs has some. The Unmade have some great net abilities, that type of thing. Like if you're taking some of these things away, like take the best of these and go give it to a new faction. Like I would love to see that because it's a shame to like the thing that breaks my heart the most about this isn't that the models are going away. They're going to sit on my shelf and be in a Hall of Fame, kind of cupboard. It's not that they're going away. It's that their characters going away. Do you know what I mean? Like what separated them as like the culture. Yeah. And what separated them as like a cool little faction is going away. So please channel what made them special into a new warband that can compete. That's what I hope.
100%.
Or proxy them up into another faction.
Like that's a good idea too. The culture of it, right? Like was so interesting and unique, and took a completely different side of just big dark metal evil knights with some fur from the north. Like this was like a look into this is what this worshipped and this is what this was, and this was an offshoot of Slaanesh. This was an offshoot of Undivided offshoot of all these other things, and it was so cool, man. Like it was really like that's the bummer to me is a lot of flavor and love was taken. And correct me if I'm wrong. Like I'm from I guess the competitive side of me, like most people taking these were like, haha, they're still viable, but like all you did was jam a FOMO or a Myrmidon or something like that in there, and then you gut half the faction. You're not playing to the faction's flavor or strength or lore at all. You're just playing a couple models you're moving around with like a big ally that's been proven to be effective. And that's not what the spirit of it was. Right. And to me, that was something I was like, okay, these are all band-aided by something like a really good piece that lets them see some mid-table play. And I don't want to say like, hey, take it away, but that's a design restriction. I don't think I don't think all these, 11 factions should be able to be band-aided by two pieces, and that's what they need to cling on for hope to play. That's not a very exciting or fun design space for anybody. And like, again, it stinks, but like, I don't know what Kagra's Ravagers are doing here. I'm going to be completely honest with you. That one,
they need somewhere to put the Underworlds model. Cause it's like there's, anyway,
someone won the league with them actually like a month or two ago, and this dude was like teleporting her around and smacking kids, and I was like,
she's good.
I was like, yeah, she is. It surprised me. She's 200 points, right? When she's like an aspiring champion, but a little bit beefier or something. But anyway, I digress. Losing the culture on these and like having the band-aid fix of like big dudes is like what sucked. Tarantulas Brood and Splintered Fang Zoo builds getting nerfed into oblivion was super healthy for the game, but they never saw any compensation for it. Corvus, like the terrain doesn't match up for what they want to do. Cypher Lords need help in multiple areas. So do you want these guys to be grinding out the few little resource they have to fix these 1.0 warbands?
100%.
Or do you want them to keep opening up space and not not mess up like they did on Cremation for Pyrehgeist?
Oh, dude. We'll talk about
if I'm wrong, correct me. Like if it's a brazen approach to it, correct me.
No, and you know what? Like to me, I look at these guys and I say, you know what needs to happen is we need to have a Legends, because these guys are going to go off from the Legends. We need to have a Legends tournament where you're using like, the 2.0 rules and you just go play them like one box and each other, no allies, nothing like that. And you can actually have a lot of fun playing these guys against each other, just like straight out like one box apiece. And, to me, it's almost going to turn them into like an old world style, where like you can be playing like these models or these factions that have been sort of put into the Legends category, and you can play them.
Old Cry. Right.
Yeah, Old Cry. There you go.
You remember the day when we can only rush an onslaught and we had no counter? I do. Like,
exactly.
Sick. I had a great time getting smashed by 7 attack things and not doing a thing about it.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, like that's what like it's. I think it's healthy for the game to call where you need to call, and like you said, Rob, like we could spend our resources trying to make these better, but it's going to take a lot of resources to try to make these better. And we had talked about it one time, Dan. I think where you could come out with a new warband that was like Scions of the Flame adjacent to kind of compensate for like a Scions of the Flame warband or any one of these. Like pick one, right? Where like
That's always what I wanted. Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
so
Like expansions to the
yeah,
original
Yeah,
warbands. Because the
yeah,
like
Chaos v
Necromunda.
Chaos, yeah, the Chaos exactly like that. Because the Chaos v Chaos nature of Warcry always appealed to me.
That was sick.
I really like Chaos in general, just as an aesthetic.
Yeah.
And so like it's definitely my favorite Grand Alliance. I like Order almost as much, but I think Chaos is definitely my favorite aesthetic in Warhammer. And like I loved that about the game, and I wish that 2.0 had included like a couple expansions to these, so you could have exactly like you were saying, Justin, like the first they came out with Scions of the Flame, and then it could be like, you know, I don't know, some other silly word of the
yeah.
flame, and it
The
would be
Keepers of the Flame, right, or
the
something like
Keepers of
that.
the Flame. Yeah, and it would have the same rune mark, and it would just be another box, and they're actually together. You can run, you could have this leader, but with a bunch of Fireborn from the original Scions. Like that was my
Super cool.
sort of idea to make these relevant again.
It's
Right.
super
But they didn't want to do that, or they didn't think of doing that. I mean, who knows, right? But either way, they kind of decided that that wasn't the direction, which is, I think, I mean, I'm going to miss them. I think
Yeah.
a lot of the newer teams are mechanically way cooler than these. I'll admit that. But aesthetically, there's very few of the second edition teams that expand upon their home faction the way these expanded on
Right.
Chaos. Like some of them
Yeah.
do. Like Askergan True Blades was hugely popular for a reason, right?
Super
Yeah.
cool.
Because they expand on Soulblight Gravelords in a way that I didn't even think was possible. And Rotmire Creed do this well, Jade Obelisk, there are examples, but for the most part, like a lot of things like Gorger Mawpack, those are great sculpts, but that's just a unit in ogres.
Right.
Like they're
Right.
just
Exactly. Yep.
That's nothing new that we haven't seen before. That's just a
Yeah.
refreshed
The monster
model.
killers are really not a far stone's throw away from just the cruel boys, right?
How dare
Like,
you? They have
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
the
and
monster
bone helmets.
killers, the
Dare
monster
I
you?
know.
killers and the flame seekers both are like we took one of the main sub factions
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
just made a unit for that sub faction. So like
Right.
monster, was it skull bugs? You were telling me, Rob. It's like
Skull bugs. Yeah.
yeah, skull bugs. Monster killers are just like if skull bugs had a unit, and Vulcan flame seekers are like if Lofnir had a unit.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's cool too. I do like that.
Culture.
I like
Culture.
that better than honestly, I like that better than Quester Soulsworn, or Royal Beast Flayers. I don't dislike Quester Soulsworn or Royal Beast Flayers, but I do like that sub faction, like zoom in, like
Focus. Yeah.
magnifying
Yeah.
glass approach. But I do miss the just like wild out of left field stuff that these give us, because it's wild. Like
Yeah,
and like
Unmade was crazy, dude. That's a crazy
yeah,
design.
It's
They
oh my
cut
so
off
god,
their
weird.
limbs and faces,
Yeah.
wear it as belts, and then have stilts. I was like, this is insane. It's so cool.
yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
It's the kind of stuff that only the Warhammer Design Studio thinks of. Like, I have so many complaints about GW and even GW Creative, and the thing that keeps bringing me back every time is the fact that there are some things like the Unmade and like Corvus Cabal, honestly, that like no one except them thinks of.
Right.
That's just so good. So
Yeah.
these will be missed.
Please don't lie. You know it's their perfectly made dice and the on-time subscription of White Dwarf that brings you in, because I don't know what
Oh
other
my
magazine in the world releases on the third Friday of a month, like it's some sort of crazy religious holiday. But you know that's what brings you back in. Be honest with
yeah, of
James.
course.
Be honest with yourself, okay?
I'm not subscribed to White Dwarf, James, so
This is why we don't get it. We get it every third Friday because you're not there. It's a big miss for us, guys.
Well, let's move on to the Pyrehgeist. Speaking of new warbands, right, that are coming out. So there was a lot of speculation that was going on about their rules for a long time. We hadn't seen anything. And just before, in between their announcement of the pre-orders and the pre-orders that happened this last weekend, we got to see the rules, and we got to take a look at it. So we're going to give you our thoughts and feelings about some of these new rules. So, yeah, let's get to started with the heroes. Okay, you've got two options here. You've got the Deacon of Flames with the Brazier Staff and the Deacon of Flames with the Pyrekeeper's Tongs. What's your initial impression of these boys? They're both 190 points. They're both 20 wounds, toughness 5, movement 4. What's interesting is that most Night Haunt, by the way, is straight up toughness 4 across the board. They tried to keep that sort of like invulnerable 4-up save that they had in AoS with the Night Haunt faction. Turns out it's a terrible save for them. With toughness, you think Ghosts would be a little bit tougher because they can't hit them, but they if you look at the compendium Night Hunt stuff, almost no one has a toughness 5 in there. It's all across the board toughness 4. So I was really interested to see that a lot of the models in here actually had toughness 5. And you can see that in their aesthetic as well, right? A lot of them are armored. They've got like the kind of the armor on them, which is hilarious. A ghost wearing army, but that's neither here nor there. Like what's holding it up? What's holding it up? It's a ghost, but that's okay. So all right, let's talk about the Deacon of Flames. They're both 190, movement 4, toughness 5, 20 wounds each. That's exactly the same. The real difference, they both have like a wizard blast, right, which is 8 inches, 2 attacks, 4 strength 4, 2/4 damage. They both have that. Obviously, they both fly. The only difference between them is that the Brazier Staff has 1 more attack versus the Deacon of the Pyrekeeper's Tongs has strength 5 versus strength 4. And with that said, the Pyrekeeper's Tongs has a damage of 3/4 versus the Brazier Staff is 2/5, right? So that was really confusing what I just said. You guys tell me what you think
I
about
can simplify this for you, Justin. I can simplify this for you.
Yes, please do.
These are both, I would say, equally good, but it depends on how you want to pilot them. So if what you care about is using the ability Soul Blaze, which is a coordinated strike from Stormcast, so basically you have to confirm a kill first, and then if you've gotten a kill this battle round, you can pick a number of visible friendlies, faction locked, half the value of the dice, which is going to always be either 2 or 3 because there's usually a high double, not always a high double, but there's usually a high double you can use. Then each fighter you pick can make a bonus move or a bonus attack, which is really, really powerful. I mean, this is a very powerful ability. This is a worse version of probably the most powerful triple in the game.
Balanced version of it feels like they turned the knob down and they're like, you got to get a little bit more to do it because they realized how good it is.
Yeah, it's a fixed, that's a good way to put it. It's a fixed version of the best triple in the game, and so it's really powerful. It's worth building to. If what you want is to do some soul blazing, I think the 4-4-2-5 one is better because it's better at just confirming kills on little things. So you can just hunt down or like 4-4-2-5. This does more damage against T3 and more damage against T6 and less against 4 and 5. And so basically if it's like the last couple wounds on something, you're bound to get at least a 5 or a 6 in there with 4 dice. If you want to, if they have a chaff model that they're leaving out, 2-inch reach is easy for sort of getting into the sort of damage distance for doing that, and then getting the kill onto a chaff model. The shooting attack does that too. So if what you're interested in is soul blazing, then I think the one with the staff is the place to be. If you want this guy to be a big part of your offense, um, I think you want the tongs, because then you're going to be sort of giving him dice abilities, maybe even blessing him a little bit, and just trying to have as much damage output as you can. And if you're playing offense, being able to deal damage to toughness 4 and toughness 5, those are the toughnesses that you really have to worry about in the game. So the tongs, if you're not just trying to do Soul Blaze combos, I think the tongs are the way to go.
100% agree with you. We're also going to say, dubbed by the Mike Sansom himself, Tong Father is a great ally for us. Looking into it, they have everything Dan said, 1000% correct. The tongs would really interest me too, is throw a blessing on it. It's 25 points. It puts you at what, 215? Right? Did I math that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ooh, dicey for me. That was a real guess in the dark for me, guys. On a move and a double for like confirming kills, right? You move and then you use the double to buff it. So it goes to say you have him blessed attack, so he's 4/5. He'll become 4/5, 4/5, I believe.
4/5. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that shoots up exponentially, because that 4 cutoff is just so much bigger. I think that's a crazy profile for death to throw around. And we were working on builds where I was running 2 tongs in an OBR build with a stalker and still have a Hecatos, and being able to be like, oh, I could still combo myself with the triple if I have it, because nothing needs the triple, or I can just move and swing at stuff and still have T5 sitting here. So I think it's a really interesting ally. The best part of this by a long shot, because we're about to go and see a lot of things just tuned down a little bit, right? Like I don't think
Yeah.
I'm off. And I love these guys too. Like I'm like, dude, it's Tong Father and the Candelabra boys. Like this is dope. Like this is a bunch of spooky boys that got set on fire at a dinner to me. That's my head canon, and that's where I'm sticking to. But they're absolutely good. I do think both are viable for what you want to do with them, and they're also sweet looking. So
that's interesting. Because
no res for a Night Haunt unit, and I think that's a very big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No res is crazy. So,
and that works for me. Night Haunt shouldn't be able to be resurrected anyway, because
yes, sir.
like Soul Blight, it makes sense. Like because they're just piles of bones and bodies, right? They're just like raw material, and so you necromancy them back up. But
Right.
Night Haunt, they're ghosts. When you actually finally kill a ghost, you decorporealize it. You permadeath it. Like you turn it into mist. And so for them to be like resurrecting ghosts back makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Okay,
Right.
but if we're
100%.
following traditional,
I don't even want to hear it.
Listen, if we're following
traditional Ghostbusters,
folklore,
you stick it in the
necromancers,
box, doesn't
right, they're
come
done.
out.
They're done.
Listen. If you're following traditional folklore, you need to find the ghost body. You need to salt and burn the bones, okay? Like, it's the only way to get rid of a ghost. So bringing it back over and over again makes sense, okay? Until you find the bones, you got nothing. It's going to be a poltergeist forever.
This is now a ghost hunting / problem solving podcast. So, we are no longer in Warcry.
Every time you bring down a skeleton on a Soulblight Gravelords player, a Night Haunt the 3 tables over has to be killed.
Yeah. Right, exactly. It's the only way to balance
why do my models keep disappearing? I love that. All right, let's move on to some of these fighters, okay? We got Balefire Guards. You've got your choice between either basically the flails, which is a 1-inch range. It makes me laugh hysterically. 1-inch range for these flails.
It's got to be a typo.
It should have been. It should have been a 2, dude. It should have been a 2. All right. So at least. So it's a 4 attacks, strength 4, 2/4 damage. Again, movement 4, toughness 5, 12 wounds. Fly. The halberd is 2-inch range, 3 attacks, strength 5, 2/4. So similar kind of a decision point that you had with the deacon. What are your guys' thoughts on these guys?
These are functionally one of the better units here, and I only say that because one, their attack profiles aren't bad for the point costs. 12 wounds is pretty butt. but 5 toughness is sick. The double to buff toughness on heroes, so out of faction heroes get buffed for it. Like bring that True Blade in, put him up to whatever he is, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
You know, cute, right? Or they're 12 bodies. Get that Gore Warden to drop them off while he's already buffing something, and he can drop it off
Oh,
and
that's
buff
cool.
other things. Hell
Mhm.
yeah, right? Big brain plays right there, and then the Gore Warden dies because he spent 225 on T3, right?
Yeah, that's
So,
the thing. It's like that
but
costs
he buffs the
what,
Gore Warden.
350 something for
Yeah,
but
but
that's
that's
okay.
when you're cooking though, right? Because then you're getting
Mhm.
that T4 toughness on there, right? You've only
Oh my
spent 2
god.
doubles to do all this, but it's a
That's
cool
right.
little trick, right? Like it is an option to do something.
And we're talking
Um,
casual play, that's fine, right?
yeah.
350 for that in competitive is embarrassing, but
Oh yeah, I would never do that.
in casual play, why not, right? This is a third of
Hell
my
yeah.
force, and we're just going to do this
Yeah.
kind of crazy combo to materialize wherever on the board we want with like a little bit of a power pair here, and it's gonna work out okay in casual play.
Right.
Um, I think if you're running torch wraiths, I think you got to go with the 2-inch range, right? Because otherwise you can't shoot stuff. And the whole point of the faction's whole ability thing is that you weaken things down and then you
Yep.
finish them off with torch wraiths and make little pyres out of them. And so
Yep.
Yeah.
you have to have the 2-inch range to do that.
Yeah,
But
that's a good point.
otherwise, I think the 4424 is just a more consistent, better profile. It's not like with the other one with the deacon, it's like a little funny little like math optical illusion because the deacon, the one with the fewer attacks, is better because it's also doing more damage. But here the damage is the same, so you want more
Right.
attack, even with the strength being the same. So, or sorry, the strength being one more. So I think like if you're trying to do cool Soul Blaze combos, you're gonna want the flails. But if you're running torch
Right.
wraiths and trying to make pyres, you want the halberds. Which I mean, it's cool that they kind of give you that little trade-off there, where
Right.
one is, there's different bits of synergy going on. I kind of like that.
A lot of the bones, no pun intended. A lot of like the whole formation of this is like really smart, and to kind of echo
Yeah,
what like a lot of people I've been talking to saying, like it's almost like they tuned down all the knobs on it because they were afraid it was getting out of control. If these guys
yeah.
had like,
The
if
synergy
the
is too beautiful.
it's gorgeous, right? Like, and
Yeah,
in theory it's super cool. You kill something, a pyre comes up, it denies area, and it just seems like everything was like they tested it and they're like, whoa, this is too much, because the torch rates, right? Like the 8-inch no min 3313. I believe they have the double, right, that lets them get another strength, and if it dies, they make the pyre, right?
yeah,
Super cool. But like you're looking at this out of the box, it's an 8-man warband. Like, okay, cool. KMK's 8-man. That's cool, right? But everything on KMK has like 15 plus health minus the one egg rot. This is 10
right.
wounds for 115. That's 12
Yeah,
wounds for 130. I can buy the leader for 20 wounds T5 as like a bespoke leader, and also having a decent fighting profile and some cool tricks. All about that. That's completely fine, and has fly, right? It's
right.
useful. But this being like 10 wounds on 115, and then like the next dudes that we'll look at, like the flame wraiths,
Yeah.
are absolutely like, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a pile of dog water that was half let out of the dog's mouth. Like, I'm not a fan of them personally. I have a
I
hard
didn't
time.
even in my video about them. I didn't even read the profiles. I just said don't play flame
Okay.
wraiths and moved on. I just
Yeah,
don't know
no,
what you're
that's
supposed to
a
do with
hun-
them.
and it sucks because, like, again, sick models, cool design, but in what universe am I, even in a casual universe, what am I going to spend 100
Right,
points on for a 1/4 profile?
Right.
I would hope somebody would slap that out of my hand
right.
and put something else in there, because it's not
This
good.
highlights more than anything the fly tax and movement tax that these
But we
models
don't even
have, right?
have movement. They're all move 4.
I
Like, and
know,
that's the
but
crazy part,
it's really the
except for the
fly,
torch rate.
right? But I mean,
Baldkite
yeah,
Berserkers have 3414, 3412 for
Yeah.
70 points. Would
right.
you pay 30 points
Mourn.
for
For that extra move.
1-inch
Yeah.
move and the fly keyword? Oh my
Never.
God.
Never. A crazy man's universe. But that's all.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and it's a completely different topic, but like, like look at Arcos, look at PBs, look at the hyper efficient chaff we have. It does not fit in with this world that they are creating of like high synergy, cool stuff to do, but not having that like point efficiency or that point to like wound efficiency or point to stat
with
efficiency.
Monster Killers, for what you
Yeah,
said.
Monster
They've
Killers are
got
the
15
exception.
wounds. The
Right,
15 wounds, and they don't cost as much. And like, because it's 115, right? 115 points, you can either get a Monster Killer with 15 wounds, significantly more damage on the 8-inch range, and
rip it
then
out too. Right.
movement doesn't really matter that much on archers. So the fact that this guy's flying 6, I get it because he's flying 6 to pick off things on one wound to make a pyre. Again, like the synergy is mwah, but the points efficiency is just so poor. I wonder, because we had talked before the show about, do we want to talk Riverblades or do we want to talk these guys? Riverblades are the points costs are the shape of an OK warband, but they're pretty bad and they're not that well designed. And I almost wonder if they were just testing only the box and not testing in the wider world, if just like the awkwardness and the way that Riverblades are kind of stunted in a weird way just made them think that the Nighthaunt were too good. Like if they were just testing against Riverblades with that 8 wound toughness 3 profile on the little guys on Riverblades, and if they just like made some pyres out of terrible unplayable elves, and they were just like, oh, these Nighthaunt are gonna like dumpster the entire game. We need to pull back on these really bad.
These guys smoked 8 wound chaff. Pull it back, guys. Dial it back. That's too good here. These 8 wound guys can't do it. Double the price. Double the price.
So the flip side of that, Dan, is that they came up with 2 separate war bands, tested them in the wild world, and they're like, these are both garbage. Let's put them in the same box. So they look good relatively against each other, right?
The crazy part is both leaders in this box go hard in other fashions. Like I'm a COS like humans player. Like when I first saw the elite rune mark, I'm like, oh, they we're what an hour and a half in this. They fucked up because I'm gonna go hard with this on a competitive table, and it's gonna be a nightmare. But then
I started painting this guy because of the Riverblades leader.
It's so good. It's so good with Mallet Boys. It's insane, dude. And you have 3 flavors of them to pick whatever you want that you're going to know how to play well. Like that's wild. But the one thing I know we went over a couple negatives of this, and like I don't want to beat it down because it's a new box. We need to buy boxes for them to keep continuing support on this. So James, I'm going to buy your box. Shut your mouth. Please release it on time. Thank you. Pyre tokens as a passive. Yeah. Is so cool for a reaction. Like instead of being
I like it.
KMK being that reaction.
Like
KMK having that reaction control. Like instead of having a reaction, we just have a passive. And I think that's awesome. And even like the idea, right? My initial idea of fixing this is probably horrible because I'm nowhere near as good as understanding the game as you are. But fixing like res, I was like, they should die, and a gravestone token would be there. And then you can res them from there. And that's it. You can't fly 8
cross the board with them.
You can't cross the board, drop a body off, and cross the board again. That's diarrhea, and I don't want it in my game. So this being the same idea, this is a stationary token. It exists. You can avoid it completely. It's only an inch from the center of an objective token, right? Like that's so cool. But again, this was turned down. It was probably 3 inches or 2 inches. Give me 2 inches, 2 damage. I'll take it. And then, or give me 2 inches, 1 damage, and you could stack them. That'd make it even cooler because then you have to pick the point. Like, do I want to fight here? Is it important to deny this? Because now it's just I'm going to sidestep, and it's too easy to do it. You don't have the activation count to really pick off what you want to turn into a pyre. So then people take damage at the end. So like it's just, what are you going to go last with your hex wraiths, right? Or not the hex wraiths. I'm sorry, the torch wraiths. Like that's what you're going to choose to go last with. Like it's not a good functional look because then you're putting too much into danger. And maybe that's like the spike in me picking this out. But like again, put the knobs up a little bit more. Thank you for the good leaders. Thank you for the great design space that you're putting us in. Fix it a little bit because this is like, it is kind of borderline unplayable with it. And it's, I mean,
But it's
am I going to play him into narrative or casual? Oh, 1000%. Some of their rules look super sweet. They look great. They can be painted great, but it's not there for like a high-end table.
To
And if
me, they should
Pyres were
have.
stronger, oh, go on, Justin.
I was gonna say, to me, what they should have done is made a universal double or triple, and we can debate on what it should have been, but that any person who killed someone could spend a double or triple to turn them into a pyre.
Oh, they
Yeah.
do
Like
have
the-
that. They do have that, Justin.
The triples for everyone.
Oh, sorry,
Mhm.
they do
Triple.
have that. Yep.
Everybody
that's
has a
cool.
triple. It's just
That's
it's so
right, they do have that.
expensive, and like
Yeah, as a
Blood
triple.
for the
It should have
Blood
been a
God.
double.
There's only
Double.
one team that actually uses Blood for the Blood God well, and that's Ogres, because they have so much damage they don't need to spend dice to get kills.
Just
But
stop
everybody
the area.
else is loading up their dice before the attack just to get the kill, right? Because lethality is so rewarded in Warcry that you need that before you need to confirm kills. You cannot like roll the dice on a 50-50. You've got to make that 50-50 a 75-25. And so like a lot of teams that have Blood for the Blood God equivalents, which for people who don't know, every podcast is someone's first podcast. Blood for the Blood God is just when you get a kill, you spend a double and you get to do another move or another fight. And there's a few others that have other little versions of this. And it's never as strong as you want it to be, other than in Ogres, because of the dice. And so I see Light the Pyre the same way. And I agree with you, Justin. If it were a double, that'd be so much more attractive.
For sure.
So then it'd be
For
like
sure.
Torch Wraiths can get a little boost before and they make a pyre, or everybody else can do the pyre after, but on a double. I mean, that would be so much. But again, I think something was up in testing and they felt they had to pull back. I don't know what it was. Maybe they got some good rolls. I don't know.
Just rolled sixes. These guys are unstoppable. I just two-shot a River Crest. Calm down, boys.
I mean, if you haven't gotten this from me before, like I like the flavors of quads, even though they're terrible sometimes.
This is a cool one.
Narratively,
this is one of the best ones I think I've seen.
Like narratively, like this would be so amazing. You get a quad first turn, you just run in, you're like, okay, deployment, boom. I mean, you just turn that into a bomb. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's hilarious. Like at the same time,
it's so weird because it's a control tool. It's like a time walk for anybody likes Magic, right? Like you're just taking like you're time walking your opponent pretty much because it's I think like when I first saw it, I was like, and move your Varangard 10 back. And go set everybody else on fire. Move your FOMO, move your big guy, move your ogre, your gut lord, whatever it might be. You reverse the whole turn.
Sadly, it's a max 6 inches, but yeah, it's still pretty.
Oh, sorry. It's still such a
6 is still enough to do the thing.
Jump off the bridge onto deadly terrain. Go to your buddies, and it's just there's so much stuff there that buys. It's a quad. You don't build around quads, but as far as like flavorful, effective quads, like. Come on, like this is
so cool.
Awesome. It's so awesome. It's not dice value reliant, which I appreciate.
Well, and I mean, this could work late game. I mean, I think it works turn one amazingly, right? Like, well, I mean, not amazingly, but like in terms of max damage, like turn one when you've got a deployment group standing next to each other, that works great, right? Two, like it works well when you've got people crowded around an objective. Right. In late game, when they already have a whole bunch of wounds on them, maybe, and you get you might get a couple cremation pyres out of that. Like that's kind of nice. Because especially if they've gone
3 damage to them, kill their friend, make a pyre token. Now they're stuck on top of a pyre token. They take another 3 damage.
Right. Awesome. Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, and what is it? Just pick a fighter within 6, right? And then they just make a bonus move. So it's whatever it's their base move then, right?
Well, no, it's equal to the value of the ability. Which kind of sucks.
Oh, it is a dice value. I'm sorry. I said that. I said it wasn't. I'm incorrect. My apologies.
So, I mean, it sucks if you get a quad 2 or something like that, right? Like, it kind of sucks. But still, like,
still sweet.
It could be fun. Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
It could be a lot of fun.
Jump somebody off a bridge onto like a rib cage. I'm going to do it. We're just going to get free disengaged blow somebody up.
Right?
It's cool. It's clever. I misread that. I got really excited. Now I'm like really let down over here by myself. And
Oh
now like
no.
all my gas just went down. I'm like, well, fuck it.
Well, here it is. They like clearly that a number of inches equal to the value of this ability is probably a turn down. Do you know what I mean? Like it probably was a bonus move towards it, and they're like, "Oh wow, like you can move a Varangard 10 inches. That's crazy. Yeah. Don't do that." You know what I mean? And you're like, "Yeah, but it's a quad. Like they don't come up that often, you know." So, and especially you got to be within 6 of it too. I mean, that's another thing, you know.
It's probably going to always be selected into that, and then it's like, why would I do this over Rampage? Is like the first question you ask, right? Yep. That's like the flow chart. Rampage or faction quad? If not Rampage, why? And like, but this one does give you the free disengage. It sets you up for another turn for the next turn. There's like a whole bunch of things you could use it for. The utility's there, the flavor's there. It makes the pyre token if you kill stuff. It's really cool. And yet again, like you like after reading and getting upset, now I'm gonna go cry when I go to bed. It's another turn. It's another turn down knob in a whole bunch. Dude, if they turn down like 1 or 2, I'm like okay with it. Like, all right, the pyre is like easy to avoid, but it controls space on an objective. Okay, I got it.
Right.
Sure. But then the quad was like tuned down, and then everybody's got like 4 wounds. Like okay. Like one rip it out is gonna destroy this stuff. Like, oh, you move. Oh, I rolled a 5. It's 4 damage. Oh, I move again. I'm gonna throw rip it out. It's dead. Like that's wild. Did we not think about this? Did we not like this was like yet again? Someone's like, I don't know, man. They killed that 8-point wound. That goddamn those elves died fast. These guys were great. Like
I can't believe how good they were against Corvus Cabal. Like they're amazing.
Damn, it beat my unmade. I don't know how this worked.
Corvus Cabal had nothing on him. We got to get rid of Corvus Cabal now.
Sunset it all. Someone's just angry.
Oh no.
Well,
I heard someone comment on these that they can't wait for these in 3rd edition. So once they always have like roughly the same stuff with a tiny tweak here or there, and this is like you could change 2 numbers and make this warband pretty cool. Because they are one of the best designs we've got. They're just like the development is such an issue. So I know we have to move on to the next topic, but
I think it was interesting, and I'll end it on this. But I think it was interesting that like the high point that you guys made, which is like, dang, this leader, like he claps, like he's really good. Use him as an ally. Like I
can't wait to spend $130 on 2 models. I'm
exactly
about
like.
It.
Your whole point was like use them as an ally. Like that's the high point that we're leading off with, you know. Like that should tell you everything about this faction, I think, right now, you know. And so, listen, I mean, I'm getting the models. I'm a Night Hunt guy. You know, they'll probably sit there until 3.0, but we'll see. You know, I mean, fun and narrative, sure, let's play it. You know what I mean? But I don't see these guys seeing the competitive table. We'll see the leader probably in the competitive table, but the rest of them maybe not so much. But anyway, all right, let's move on to our last topic that we have, which is that AoS 4.0 was announced, and as part of that, they announced a new way to play, which was Spearhead. Now, what's interesting is that I don't know what happened to my camera; like it just disappeared on me.
I can hear you great, but I
can
can't
hear you. Froze with your mouth open. It's pretty excellent.
Oh, jeez. That's
I don't know if Dan sees it too, but it looks
it's not as bad a still screen as you would think, given that your mouth is open, because like you're clearly mid-talk, you're staring off into the middle distance with kind of a profound, like there's some real like wisdom behind your eyes ready to come out of your mouth. That
you know, that's what I go for.
Dan is being super nice to you, but you're giving me more of a Goonies vibe. So
you guys,
I'm gonna balance this out. I gotta yin yang this right now. But
we can see you great now.
With you, Chunk.
You're good now. You're fixed. Spearheads. Go.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. All right, so Spearhead. What's interesting is that this is a new way to play it. Right. Essentially, this is exactly like Combat Patrol. That it was in 40K. All the same things that they're saying is the same. You play on a 44 by 30 board. You can play it in less than an hour. It's very competitive. You have a couple of units and a leader. The rules are set for Spearhead, and they have their own data cards, or basically their own war scrolls within the Spearhead. So you don't even use the full AoS cards that they have, right? Because they have like specific abilities that you can use in Spearhead that you can't use in AoS. Usually they're toned down abilities. You've got specific secondaries that you can use, or that you can play for. There's separate missions and things like that. So, I mean, everything that James Workshop is saying about Spearhead is exactly the same thing that they said about Combat Patrol. I mean, you can take the articles, put them side by side, and just go through the highlighter and be like, check, 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 check. So that tells me a couple of things. One, AoS 4.0 is going to feel and look a lot like 40K 10th edition. Like a lot like it, right? Two, in my opinion, they basically said Combat Patrol was a cool thing. We're going to do this for AoS. So what does that mean for us? We can look at Combat Patrol and see how they are going to organize this. So I pulled up real quick the core rules. We're going to look at Combat Patrol, right? It basically gives you the like missions, the armies, like basically some basic rules that you have. These are free to download rules, and I assume that the Spearhead is going to be the same thing. Tells you how to play it basically, and then here it is. It gives you the phases that you do, and it tells you what abilities you can do in those phases, and then it will give you at the end. Let's see, I'm scrolling down. It'll give you at the end missions that you can play that are. So that's all the rules, basically. What's interesting is they're basically 40K rules. I mean, straight up, with the exception of the stratagems that they use, which are like command abilities in Age of Sigmar and how it works. So sorry, I gotta get down to the end. So here's like a mission. Okay, so it'll give you a mission objective. It'll tell you the battlefield size. It'll tell you like how to build your army for it, and then it'll tell you basically like what you like, how you deploy, and like what the objectives and stuff like that are. And that's like the core rules. We expect that for Spearhead. Now, if you take a look at this, is the Space Marine Strike Force Octavius. This is I believe that this is going to look exactly the same. So you have Leader A, named Captain, right? And it tells you what they're equipped with. Leader B, named Lieutenant, basically, or in this case, a Librarian, what they're equipped with. And then you have Squad 1 and Squad 2. Tells you how many models are in there, what they're equipped with. Basically, it just basically says 2 leaders, 2 units, right? So, and it's very prescriptive about what unit. So, like if I'm playing Night Haunt, it'll tell me you get to take a Guardian of Souls and an Executioner Lord, right? Like those are the 2 leaders that you get to take, and then you get to take a unit of Chain Rasps and a unit of I don't know, like the Grimghast Reapers or something like that, yeah. Right? Like and Chain Rasps will have 10 models, and the Grimghast Reapers will have 10 models, and this is what they're equipped with, and this is what they can do. And then it will tell you here like what kind of abilities that they have, like what that you can use for command points, and then like what you can do to upgrade your leader. Like it might give them an extra attack. It might give them like this one like increases their objective control by 1, which is kind of cool, right? And then they have like secondary objectives. For example, this says at the end of each phase, you score 2 VP if your captain model destroyed 1 or more enemy models that phase. So like those are secondaries to get extra victory points in the game, right? So they'll probably have stuff like that similar to it. These are the abilities. Gene Rot, Resilience, Veteran Instincts, Duty, and Honor. So they'll have something similar to that, to the command abilities of that faction that you can have. So look, the game's meant to be played in less than an hour. The rules are all contained in the downloadables that you can have and play. And it's a little bit different than AoS. You're using the same rule set, but it's strategically a very different game in the sense that You're very limited. You don't do any list building whatsoever. And it's meant to go hand in hand with the Spearhead boxes that we've been seeing that just came out. Remember we talked about the packaging, I think, Dan, a little while ago, and how they moved away from the start collecting to the Spearhead boxes. And I said this is an opportunity for them just to charge more money. Well, I was right. They're probably going up to about $160. But what that also means is that
they confirmed that they're not.
really?
They're still at 130 or whatever the current Vanguards are. The Spearheads
that's
cost the
nice.
same.
That's nice because the Space Marine combat patrols are 160.
Yeah,
so I thought they were going to go up and match those price. But anyway, so keep it at 130. That's great. Spearhead boxes. That whole box is basically straight out of the box. That's what this is right here, right? Your 2 leaders and your different units. Now, what's interesting is if you look at a lot of Spearhead boxes, a lot of them have like a big model in there. You know, like I think the Fire Slayers one might have a Magmadroth in it.
Those start collecting, yeah. And then the Spearhead and the Vanguard all shifted to having a central character.
Yeah.
And then they shifted to having like 1 unit of one thing, 1 unit of another thing. So it's the same thing. I don't know how well this did. I didn't read or follow up on anything, but I do think the simplicity of it allows for people to be like, well, let me try this Spearhead for Stormcast, and now I have a couple Annihilators and Vindicators, and I can play Warcry on the side and still have everything all together for this, and I can expand it. And I think it's a really cool entry point for both places. However, it is not named or marked Warcry, so like people are going to take it, get it for Warcry. It's not going to be marked for Warcry, and then James Workshop's going to be like, "Why aren't you buying Warcry?" When it's a compendium team, and that's fine. Like I think it's a really good value and deal for people, especially like there are probably some good ones out there. Like I know Stormcast has like a whole bunch of stuff they can use, but like in terms of this, like it's supposed to be not a skirmish, but like a smaller scale, like think 1K instead of 2K, and like your first game is going to be 2 hours because it's a lot of abilities, and then like you build up to the 1 hour games, which is sick. I mean, look at this. This is 10, 12 models total for the Space Marines. That's awesome for somebody who's like, I don't want to get a big army. And then if they were to go like this doesn't translate well to Kill Team because it's not what Kill Team's like model boxes are. But it's pretty cool though. And I think like if we're going back to like the Spearhead Vanguards, like all the pictures you had, a lot of them are mostly usable and a good entry point for people to get in, get some models, paint it up, have access to 2.5 different games. And like the one for COS has the cannon I can't use for Warcry, but it has the field. It has the pony, the Cavaliers, and it has the cool dudes, the steel helms. So like I have a completely functional, albeit not top notch, hyper tuned list. I have something completely fine to go with another boy who gets the Plague Bringers and the Fly Boys, and we're gonna go fight it out and see what's up. Or the crazy Squig one that they still need to add more characters for. The Boingrot Pounders and the Boingrot Boss, like all that stuff. Like it's cool. I think it's definitely like a good take to get in there somewhere. The Feck one's insane. The Feck one goes hard for like if you're getting into Warcry. But Dan, what do you think?
I'm really interested in sort of what this means for Warcry in terms of how they're going to position it. Like, I don't know very much about Kill Team. I'll be the first to admit that. I know a little bit more about Combat Patrol because I practiced to play it once when I thought I could make it to a Combat Patrol night, and then I actually went to the wrong place. But I did
awesome.
practice up.
That's part of playing Combat Patrol. Show up at the right place.
So, and then a few friends of mine have played some Combat Patrol. The thing that is pretty universal of everyone I know who's played it, one, getting your game in within an hour is hopeless. Like you will never ever do it, no matter how good you get at the game. But two, everyone says their first 2 or 3 games are fun, which is great, right? That's wonderful to see, and it's clearly a success in that way. The deeper question on Combat Patrol is like the local group was going strong for about 2 months and then kind of petered out, and they're actually all like, a lot of them made friends, which is great, but now they're all like playing other games on Combat Patrol nights. And I think the reason is because you're locked into one configuration of models only, unless you're Space Marines, in which case you have 3 potential ones, but like everyone else only has one configuration. There's a lot less replayability there. So it feels like Combat Patrol cannot be your game, right? Like it cannot be, if you're just someone who only is going to play or engage with one GW game, it's not going to be Combat Patrol because it's not going to give you enough. The only way that you would do it if you were like, I am going to learn every single box and how it plays, right? That would be the only way you could do it, because each one is not that replayable. So then, like, because part of the genius of all, like, the 4 major ones, the 2 big cries and then Kill Team and Warcry, is like you can lose a game and then think like, not only could I have played it different to win that game, but what if I had brought different guys? Could I have won that game? And so you can't do that with Combat Patrol or Spearhead, which makes me really interested about what they're gonna do. There's a new Kill Team edition dropping this year.
It's already dropped. Yeah.
No, Kill Team 3 hasn't dropped yet.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it came out. The previous box was the one that they're in a new.
No, that's a new box, but that's not a new edition.
Yeah,
like,
it's not. It's the same edition, but it's just like a new environment with different rules, like how they had Into the Dark.
I thought they considered that Kill Team.
Nah, it's just like a different set of terrain rules. Like Into the Dark was open up a hatch, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
They are heading towards a new edition, I think, soon, though, is what I've heard, but they're not there yet.
One cool thing that Kill Team has that I know some people wish Warcry had is like there's indoor and outdoor rule sets and like terrain sets, and they're different from each other. But I'm really interested in what this new Kill Team edition is going to look like, because I think that could teach us a lot about what the future of Warcry might be like, just because, like,
maybe,
they're doing a smaller game than AoS. Is this because they think there need to be 3 levels? Or is it because, they're gonna like draw some kind of contrast between them? At the end of the day, Combat Patrol has more guys than Kill Team, but is significantly less like crunchy and easy
you
to
get what you
obsess
get.
over.
Same thing with Kill Team, though, too. It's like it's pretty much a box, maybe 2 boxes, just to get a couple like gunners or something. You get what you get, and like the real ploy in that is using the stratagems and using all these things, and like they're 8 million steps before, and like it's awesome. It's a competitive game, but you were talking about what does that mean? I think looking at Kill Team's design for everything, they shifted heavily towards bespoke boxes. Like almost the compendium teams, with the exception for a handful. I could be completely wrong, but from talking to some of the community, like there's a couple that are okay from the compendium, but largely the super powerful ones are all the bespoke stuff. And I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind getting away from the old stuff and then having the Warcry stuff is just flat out better than having that. And like we also have Underworld in there too, which muddies the water. I personally like it, but it's also a travesty against the game in a lot of ways. If you ever looked at Kyle's list, like it's just stuff that shouldn't exist. That's just plain better, like for min-maxing crunching numbers. I mean,
and that's because we never got a points update for the Bladeborn, right? But so I play Kill Team, and I can tell you for a fact that the bespoke has always been better than the compendium. Has always been better. I mean, there's a few that can hold its own. A few, like the Custodies, like they can
intercessors. I know that. And
the intercessors came out after as a download. Do you know what I mean? So they are treated almost as a bespoke in that sense, because they aren't the same as a flat Space Marine compendium. And so it's interesting because Warcry had the opposite problem, where the compendium was almost always in 1.0 was almost always stronger than the bespoke. And the reason why is because the main reason why is because Warcry uses a points model to list build, and there was a lot more options in the compendium ones, whereas Kill Team gives you a list of these are your models, and you have to take like 6 of them, and the other 6 you can choose to have duplicates or something like that. But it's really, I mean, it's like static plus. Like the Spearhead is very static. Like you get what you get. You don't throw a fit. Like you just have you know, I mean, that's what you get. Like Kill Team is like static plus. Like you have to take these models, and then you get choice of like 3 or 4, and maybe you get to add a piece of gear to 1 or 2 of them. Do you know what I mean? Like it's very fixed. There's no points in it whatsoever. GW has basically balanced the game because they say this is the list you have to take for this faction, right? Warcry uses a points base where you can come up with some wild scenarios, like because you're just using points, and so there's a plus and a minus for Warcry. It gives you a lot of flexibility to do a lot of crazy things. That I think
that's the
is
fun
awesome.
of it, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of the fun of it,
and
that's what you were
saying.
saying.
A huge amount.
Yeah, and that's what you're saying, Dan. Which is like I lost this game, but now what can I do to like make it better, like even better, right? Whereas Kill Team is like, okay, well, how can I play this faction better with like the stratagems that I'm using, the things like that? Like that's how you get better at Kill Team is like, how do I play this better? Like, where's my positioning? How do I use my abilities? How do I chain combos off of each other? That kind of thing. So, but all that said, if we're comparing and contrasting Kill Team, Combat Patrol, 40K versus Warcry, Spearhead, AoS, it's the same space for both of these, for all of these. Do you know what I mean? And so Kill Team clearly is not going away because Combat Patrol was a thing. And in fact, I would argue that Combat or Kill Team is probably more popular than Combat Patrol is, because you do have the dynamic of still getting better at the game and it being competitive. That I think, Dan, your point of Combat Patrol of like, I'm locked into this faction, I can only do X amount out of this box. It's really just a baby 40K game, and now I'm just going to add models to this, and now I'm going to play 40K. You know what I mean? Like, if I want to get competitive with my Combat Patrol, I add some more units, and now I play 40K. Like, that's what happens when you want to get competitive with Combat Patrol. Whereas with Warcry Kill Team, you want to get better at it. You try out different factions, you try out different rules, you try out different list building. I mean, it's contained in its own game. Whereas I think Combat Patrol forces you to get out of it and move into the bigger game if you want to get competitive. If that makes sense.
Yeah, the fact that Combat Patrol is designed not to last is very interesting as a gateway game.
Yeah.
It's like a nice appetizer before you get to your main course.
Yeah. And I'll make the point with the Spearhead things, and you said this, Rob, like a lot of these boxes get you started in Warcry, but if you really want a competitive one, you're going to have to add some models.
Like, imagine being a new player and getting the IDK box, and you're like, I got this sweet shark and these cool dudes. And then you go to play him, and someone just tables you, and you're like, whoa, what did I just do?
Which is funny, because I bet their combat... Yeah. I bet their Combat Patrol is really good. I bet their Combat Patrol is actually really good. So it'd be so funny to like do really good. Or sorry, their Spearhead. I think it'd be so funny to like go play Spearhead and like crush it, and then come and play Warcry with them, and just be utterly like a fish out of water, literally.
What do you mean these thralls are 85 points and I just get dunked on? Like, I just think it like as like a new player perspective, like, because I'm very I don't want to say impulsive, but I could be warded away from like my past playing of games. Like, I'd be warded away from like a really bad starting experience. And like, what if I picked up one of these, like, really, I'm like looking at the pictures, Daughters of Cain, right? And I'm like, I got these cool snake ladies, and I got all this, and like some cool abilities, like Bathed in Blood's a great ability, hands down. No one's gonna argue that. Half of these are unusable. Like, and like you get there, and like then you have to find out the hard way. You just dropped 130 bones on something you don't plan on getting into like 2K AoS. Now you can't even play Warcry confidently because like you're afraid of getting like maraudered by it, and it stinks, and that can be a bad experience for them. Whereas if you just pick up like what was the last one, the Wilder Core and the you pick up that box is completely great for two people being like, oh, I get it. These little dudes stay alive by going backwards and shooting the big guys, and the big guys smash the little guys. Problem solved. Game's great. You go right into it. You get and that's it. Where this is like a lot more intricate, a lot more building. You have to worry about the profiles for AoS, even though you're getting it in a Spearhead. What's good in Warcry? Like it's almost confuddling. But I think like, you know, that's where the space of it, the interest of it lies, is like it's not meant to, like, you're not meant to sit here and savor this. You're meant to expand out and buy more rapidly in a hurry. It's kind of not great when I say it like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a trap, right?
Listen, it sounds predatory. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I think we're figuring that out together as a group, as we kind of.
I said that, I'm like, ooh, this sounds really predatory. I don't like it. Like, go buy Warcry.
And I think
go
it
buy
is.
Fire
I think.
Flood.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, these new Warcry boxes are great because they are such a good contained game. Like they specifically Hunter and Hunted and then Pyre and Flood. It's like for a long time the weakness of Warcry was that it's actually hard. It can easily leave a bad first impression if you don't have an experienced player to walk you through it. And both Hunter and Hunted and Pyre and Flood, I think you and a buddy, neither of you could know what they're doing, and you could still have great games out of it on your first try, which is really nice. But yeah, this is interesting. You guys have me thinking about Spearhead like a lot of new ways, which is kind of cool.
I'm sorry.
So Dan, I think one of your near term, like one of your videos coming out as we find out more about Spearhead, but I think we have a really good idea of what it actually is just based on Combat Patrol. But I think one of your videos coming up should be what are the best Spearhead boxes to get into Warcry with, right? And rank those ones. Because like there are some in here, like you said, FEC is amazing. Like that is a great box to have, right? The Night Haunt one sucks. Don't get the Night Haunt one for Warcry. It's so bad. It is so bad, you know. But some of these other ones, like you know, you could probably do an okay one with the Gits, you know, like
a lot of netters in that box.
Yeah. I'm sure KO's not bad. You know what I mean? Like, be quiet, Justin. Don't say much. You know?
Yeah, no, the KO one was super dope for it. I was looking at it. You get a sweet spaceship or the frigate just for like if you want to do a diorama too. Like it's a win-win on all counts.
Are there Thunderers in that KO one?
I'm gonna look it up because I'm upset thinking about it.
All right, let's stop talking about KO then.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, so Dan, maybe that's one of your videos next time is like ranking the Spearhead boxes in terms of like the value to Warcry. You know what I mean? So
yeah, once we have an exact list for sure, because I mean this is just like a 5x4 grid. I don't know if that means there will be exactly 20 or what.
No, I mean there are no Thunderers. Just to update everybody here, there's like 3 Sky Wardens and like 10 Arcos, and then an Admiral.
I like that version of KO. I like when you play KO as Order Nurgle.
Yeah. I can get on board with that. I think they're just a really sweet faction overall. Honestly, like they look super cool.
KO is another one where it's like the design is nice, the development was wrong. There's a lot of that.
Right, but the knobs were not tuned down. They were like cranked up. Like, and that's
we need
fine.
The guys who tested the Pyregheists to test KO.
I'll tell you what, though, what you said, if you and I played a game, Dan, if you and I sat down and played a game of Fire and Flood, doesn't matter what we picked, that would probably be an amazing experience. Like those two against each other would be so much fun. Right. And then one of us queues up a competitive list we made, and then all of a sudden the fun comes crashing down.
I'm telling you, they tested it. They're like, oh, these two are bad. Let's put them together. You know?
Yeah, they got it.
So anyway, that pretty much wraps up what we wanted to talk about tonight. And, you know, I think we had a lot of really interesting and good conversations tonight. Things going away, things coming up. We're in the midst of change. Unfortunately for Warcry, I think a lot of the significant change that we're looking for is probably a good year away. You know, when we're talking about Warcry 3.0, we're probably going to see some things coming out that are related to Age of Sigmar, like maybe some downloadable PDFs for new rules for some Stormcast, maybe some new rules for some other like Skaven that might be coming out with new models. But I think a lot of the winds of change that are blowing around us. We're kind of in the eye of the hurricane in a sense, and we see a lot of change around us, but not a lot that's hitting us directly. So we'd love to know what you guys think. Join us in our Discord. Hit us up. Let us know, what you think the future winds of Warcry hold for us, especially with new AoS on the horizon. And also let us know your experiences with Pyre and Flood, and we hope you have a good time with it. So with that, thank you everybody for listening to us, and we hope you have a great night. See you all at the tables.